recall the metallic temps of blood as it ran past my lips. Warm against the sharp, cold night air, my shoulder was a relentless throbbing agony, like a knife had been plunged in and left to fester. He was still drawing heavy breaths as he retreated, his knuckles swollen and his jaw set hard. My brother-in-law Jack, the man my sister Olivia had chosen her voice, sliced through the ringing in my ears. "You should have just secured the damn mortgage. Not are you injured, no, why would he resort to this, just that, in that instant?" The truth became crystal clear. This was no outburst of passion or rage. This was a transaction violence, deployed as a means of coercion. Prior to this confrontation, our relationship had been close. My sister and I were inseparable, growing up, sharing confidences, clothing, and aspirations. I had financially supported her before covering rent during periods of struggle with Jack. This time, however, their request was immense. They sought my signature on a substantial bank loan for a failing enterprise he was mismanaging. If their venture collapsed, the full burden of the debt would transfer to me. I simply declined. My refusal was not hostile or mean-spirited, it was merely firm. That's when the shift began. Her messages became clipped phone calls, ceased at family gatherings. She avoided my gaze and him. I noted the subtle smirk when my father inquired about their well-being, smug assurance that revealed they had already laid their contingency plans. The night of the incident, they had invited me over under the pretense of reaching an accord. I held a fleeting hope she was ready to reconcile. Instead, it was a carefully set trap. The assault was swift. I barely had time to brace myself. A hard shove into the wall, a blow to my face, and a wrenching twist of my shoulder that sent a searing current down my spine. She stood by and watched the entire time. When I stumbled into the street, my attire ripped and my hair matted with blood, my primary thought was not of retribution. It was purely of survival. I managed to reach my parents' residence. I must have looked like a survivor dragged from a battlefield. My mother gasped. My father's hands shook visibly as he rushed to steady me. I collapsed before I could utter a complete sentence. Upon regaining consciousness, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air. My father was seated beside my bed, and police officers were stationed outside the door. They had already been informed. My father recounted everything I had managed to whisper before losing consciousness. They did not conceal their disgust. One officer muttered, "Family does not perpetrate such acts." But I understood the mechanics of the legal system. Men like my brother-in-law, charming, articulate, frequently exploit loopholes. I required more than moral outrage. I required irrefutable proof. I needed patience. I did not file charges. That night, everyone assumed I was too terrified. The truth was, I was meticulously planning. I maintained my distance, but remained vigilant. I leveraged connections, one contact at the bank, another, handling property records. The whispers of his misconduct began to surface. Deferred payments, quiet exits by investors, a concealed loan operating under a shell company. One commenced the collection of evidence, screenshots, copies of financial statements, and emails that a mutual acquaintance had accidentally forwarded to me. My goal was not merely his incarceration. I sought his total annihilation. 2 months later, I initiated my move. I paid a visit not to him, but to my sister. She looked drawn, exhausted. The business was failing, she confessed, and he was under intense strain. I listened, quietly nodding, cultivating the image of the forgiving sibling. That was the moment I offered to intercede. I proposed to transfer a minor sum to stabilize their finances, but I insisted on reviewing the business accounts to ensure the responsible allocation of my funds. She granted me access. It was the final devastating mistake she would make. Within those accounts lay the totality of his deception: fabricated invoices, egregious overbilling of clients' funds, siphoned directly into his private account, unvarnished, ugly fraud. I compiled the evidence precisely. A folder meticulously labeled with dates and with bank logs. I dispatched copies to the police department, the lending institution, and the 2 investors he had defrauded. Then I simply waited. The arrest occurred on a Friday morning, officers at his office door, the snap of handcuffs echoing like a discordant musical finale. My sister called me screaming, accusing me of a calculated betrayal. I offered no reply. Instead, I attended his arraignment at the courthouse. I sat in the rear, deliberately inconspicuous. I watched him scan the room, his eyes finding mine for a fleeting instant. It was the first authentic glimpse of fear I had ever seen in him. The charges were formally read: fraud, embezzlement, and assault. The final charge caught him completely off guard because the night I staggered out of his home bleeding, I had gone directly to the emergency room. The photographs and medical reports had been sitting quietly in a sealed envelope, activated only now. My sister shunned me for several weeks. When she finally sought me out, she was unrecognizable from the woman I grew up with. Hayes facing substantial prison time. She said softly, "They might seize the house." I calmly took a sip of my tea. "Olivia, you should have simply signed the divorce papers," I stated. She froze. "What?" "Hayes filing for bankruptcy. When the bank initiates foreclosure on the mortgage, your name is attached as well." I paused, letting the silence drive the final nail, and since I never co-signed, her lips parted, but no words would come out. "People mistakenly believe retribution is born of rage. It is not. It is about absolute control. It is about ensuring your target comprehends the precise mechanics of their downfall and knowing that you were the architect of their collapse." I had no further need for conversation.